Kristen, the Cross Stitching Runner, and welcome to my channel. This channel is all about cross stitch with a little bit of life stuff thrown in, and my intro is just a little bit different to normal because this episode is going to be just a little bit different to normal. I don't have any cross stitch or anything to share with you or show you today, but there will be future episodes that I will be able to share what I've worked on and purchase started, anything in between. So I hope you're comfortable and I hope you have some stitching with you, and thank you for spending some time with me. So I've been contemplating off and on for a while now what Flosstube 2.0 might look like and what sort of things we might need to do, if we need to do it, to amp up Flosstube, because we've already got this incredible base of format, so to speak, where we do a recording of the projects that we're working on, any new purchases that we've bought, whether it be a physical chart or fabric or floss or anything in between, and we share with each other the groups that we're part of, whether it be online stitching groups or even physical groups that we catch up with, and the different things that we do to keep ourselves motivated to complete projects that we're working on. And for many people, this particular format has worked wonderfully in terms of then being able to consistently upload videos and have a fantastic engagement with the people who have subscribed to their channel, and they've got heaps of likes for the different episodes. They've uploaded a huge range of or huge number even of views that are going with those particular videos, and lots of people commenting and such. And it is fantastic that they have just hit the nail on the head of what works for them. And then there are other channels who may have either recently come on board or may have been around for a while and are struggling, so to speak, and are hoping to see the increased level of engagement and increased numbers of subscribers and such that many of the other content creators have received. And some may be left wondering, why aren't we getting the same numbers? We're doing the same content and sharing the same things, but is that what the problem is? Are we in some cases copying or mimicking the people that we love and admire, and that's why it's not working? So this is where it's got me wondering about the Flosstube 2.0 and the channels that are struggling to see the levels of engagement that they want to see, whether we need to become the leaders for Flosstube 2.0 to amp it up and start talking about some of the other really awesome things that are connected to Flosstube. Getting curious about cross stitch is perhaps one of the ways that Flosstube 2.0 can be amped up. We started to see a hint of this when we had the full-blown pandemic happening, and there was a variety of lockdowns happening, and a lot of us were restricted in how much travel we could do. And that's where some of the Flosstube creators were fantastic, and they got curious, and we started seeing many channels doing interviews with a variety of creators. So creators in the context of the designers and the floss and fabric creators in terms of the dyers and those sorts of things. And it was a fantastic way to be able to find out some different things about our creators and creative people that we hadn't really known before. And I think it was also a great way to see another side of our Flosstube people who were asking the questions and seeing how they interact with different people. And so it's with these things in mind that has me wondering if there are other aspects of Flosstube and cross stitch and that kind of thing that we can incorporate into our already fantastic base. And aside from the interviews and such that we saw during lockdowns and that kind of thing, I've seen on channels like Jan Hicks Creates where she got creative and we got to go shopping with her, so to speak, where she'll change the angle of the camera and we got to go online shopping with her. And there would be some different websites that she'd come across that she really liked the look of, and there were different charts and patterns and tools of the trade that caught her attention. And that I think was absolutely fantastic. And then we had the likes of Stacey from the 911 Stitcher. She already has been doing this for a long time as part of her channel, where she is I guess still doing the fantastic base of sharing things she's working on, purchases, that kind of thing. And there's also the aspect of other, I guess, cross-stitch news or Flosstube news that she finds interesting and shares with us as well. And that I think is a fantastic thing as well. And then I'm also thinking about Michelle Bendy, or also known as Bendy Stitchy, something very similar to that, where she, I guess, in years gone by, she's done these other kinds of engagement of doing the giveaways. I mean, a lot of channels do the giveaways, but with some of these giveaways, they're they're raising money to go towards the some different charities and such. And I know that that took a lot of work for her behind the scenes, and she's not doing that as much at all anymore. And that it's those sorts of examples that has me wondering if there's any other curiosities that we need to consider that we may not have thought of before. And are there any other avenues? Like, is there any other kind of curiosities? Like, is there the historical side or archival side of cross stitch that we may not have delved into yet? Good for the audience. Are we changing as an audience? Do we need to adjust and reconsider who our audience is and the format in which we're presenting the projects that we are working on, the achievements we've made with them, and I guess even the things that we've purchased and such? I don't know. I found that as a consumer of Flosstube, that seeing the different things that people have purchased, the floss, the fabric, and the patterns and such, that has opened up my world up immensely, because I don't see a lot of that kind of stuff in my regular brick and mortar kind of stores. And knowing that I can purchase them online is fantastic. It is a huge game changer, and that's where having that kind of base and incorporating it still within our floss tube is fantastic. And having that kind of tried and true base as a consumer can be a fantastic thing when you just need to have something soft and gentle in the background, and because you're working on something that's confetti heavy or that just needs a lot of concentration because of the changes that might be happening with the amount of counting that you're doing. But what about the other side of stitching when you have a lot of just one color stitching, you don't need to really count too much, and you're potentially needing a bit of a challenge, so to speak, of reconsidering how Flosstube is done, for example. Could that sort of be okay? Could that change? Could that work? So that's where it's just something to consider, something to contemplate. And if it is something that is really going to freak the audience out too much, I think this particular episode is going to be a fantastic way to try and see if I can just lose some more subscribers, perhaps. Who knows? Okay, just one little tidbit before I get into the technology side of things. What I'm also curious about is and what I was trying to spit out before is, what about the times when you're working on a project that doesn't require as much concentration because you're just stitching a huge block of colour? You don't need to change the colours, you might just need to rethread your needle every so often. And you're potentially curious about learning more about the craft that you love, like cross stitch. This is where it's that getting curious side of things kicks in. And if you have that level of authenticity, I need to rephrase, I'm mincing my words. So finding your passion, what aspects of cross stitch are you passionate about? For me, I just love being able to sit down and just do cross stitch. And in the background, I might have something like Netflix or whichever. And some of the shows that have really stuck with me are the ones that are to do with, I guess, history and that kind of things, and a little bit of the paranormal. But in my professional life, I work with in the world of information management, records management, and archives. And for me, that's where my passion is: records management, archives, and the history and the story that all these records can tell. Because without that kind of stuff, we wouldn't have some of these things like museums, art galleries. We wouldn't have all these really old pictures, old videos, and old artifacts to be able to touch and look at and engage with if we didn't have this thing called archives and records management and libraries and that kind of thing. So that's where it's the Flosstube 2.0 of tapping into your authentic self rather than tapping into, I guess, an old tried and true cookie cutter format. The format exists for a reason and it works, but being authentic means putting a spin on it and finding a new thing that is just a little bit different. I guess the other example would be the updating of a car or the computers and technology and that kind of thing. We still have computers, we still have mobile phones, but they keep improving, they keep changing, and it's a good thing. So that's what I'm suggesting with Flosstube, that Flosstube is still a great and amazing thing, but it's taking it up to that next level. And this is where many of us content creators can be part of that. We can do that. And I think it could be a really cool thing. Technology. Where would we be without it? I wouldn't be able to be here talking with you, hopefully not boring you too much, hopefully entertaining you enough to keep you engaged. And technology, we love to curse it. It's part of our lives. When it doesn't work, it is annoying, but when it does, it can be amazing. And the other thing to consider is that we've had things like Zoom and FaceTime and Teams and all these other kinds of products and stuff in our lives for a really long time. But the pandemic forced us to use a lot of these tools in some circumstances for the very first time. And for some of us, that first time was a horrible time, and we've just come along for the ride. For others, we've really embraced it and just run with it. And it's something where I don't think it's going to go away anytime too soon. And now that we've come out of lockdown, borders are open, we can travel and move a lot more freely than we did 2 to 3 years ago. It's now a question of how we can still use that technology to, I guess, help engage with a new kind of audience, or engage differently with our existing audience. And this is where I hope that we can still keep some of the things that happened during our lockdown days. For example, the online stitching retreats. That was absolutely fantastic. I loved it because I got to meet a whole new group of people that I may not have otherwise been able to meet, because I may not have engaged with technology in the way that I do now. And it has meant that through these technologies and engaging in Flosstube like I do now, and meeting people, it has meant that I found out about some physical groups that I could catch up with and see people in person and touch and poop them safely, and find out like that there's other people I can see and catch up with and engage with in my own country, which was pretty cool. But I also love that there are other people who are in other countries that really enjoy what they do as well, and having something in common, I think, was just really cool and exciting. So this is where it's a question of how that technology can work for us into the future. The other aspect, and this is a really, really quirky, really weird kind of question and suggestion, so please bear with me for a moment while I lay it all out. The other way that we might be able to find a new audience and perhaps promote the benefits of cross stitch and all the fun stuff of how we feel before we start doing cross stitch, like we might be feeling a bit stressed and anxious and that kind of thing. And then the act of doing cross stitch, how it can help us just to relax and unwind and just focus on one thing, then enables us to come out the other end and actually feel a bit relaxed. And this is the quirky side of things of the meditation side of things that can come with crafting, because I know it's not just cross stitch that can have these benefits. There's been studies and all the rest conducted over the years by a variety of psychologists and scientists and everywhere in between. Is why we've got things like art therapy and similar things, especially for people who are experiencing, unfortunately, PTSD. We've got people who are in correctional centres and jails and such who, if it all works well for them, they engage in art therapy in some way to help with rehabilitation. And it's this quirky, weird, potentially weird, but not so weird, it could work kind of thinking that this is where, for many of us, if we've got that interest, if we've got that know-how and ability, somehow tapping into that aspect of Flosstube and cross stitch and engaging with a new audience or engaging with our existing audience in a different way. So the other quirky thing is, what if someone were to talk you through the motions of cross stitch as though you were actually stitching? So it's a bit like that guided meditation side of things. So it's in those circumstances or situations where you may not be able to sit down and have something to, because I know that sometimes it's the act of doing something with your hands that helps with the calming side of things, and that is super important. But what if you didn't have something to be able to keep your hands busy to help with that calming thing? What if you were able to tap into, however, the guided meditation aspect of cross stitching, and you could still, it may seem weird, may look weird. What if you had your eyes closed and your hands were still going through that motion of doing cross stitch? Could that help with the calming aspect? Could that help with your audience? Just something to consider, something weird. I know it's weird and quirky, but hey, you need to consider who's talking here. I'm weird and quirky, but just something to consider with technology. Okay, let's wrap it up. Have I missed anything? Is there anything else that we could consider as far as this Flosstube 2.0 is concerned? Are there any other ways that we could amp up Flosstube that could still make it really cool and interesting, but we still get to share with each other the projects that we're working on, the things that we've purchased, the tools that we've come across that may be new to us, but others have been using for ages or vice versa. Like, is there a tool that you've been using for ages that you think that everyone else has been using, but when you start to then share it and talk about it with others, they go, why haven't we heard about this before? What's going on? This is really cool. So is there anything like that out there that we could include in this whole Flosstube 2.0? Do you have any questions about what I've talked about here? Am I talking something outrageous right now? Is this something that is like, look, Kristen, just go back into your corner, keep doing a bit of cross stitch, and you'll be okay. Just talk, keep your ramblings to yourself, and it's all good. So I just will leave you with this one last question. Does Flosstube need to be amped up? Thank you. Thank you very much, and I'll catch you later.